trouble?
Nah, just a few guards. Nothing to worry about. Whatever Abstergo's doing here, it's big. It's an old warehouse and they've got boxes and bags everywhere.
Abstergo is mass-producing mediocre video games about the street and smuggling them via these gangs, creating a negative image around us.
Ugh. No shit.
Don't be distracted. Find the briefcase.
I think I've got it. What's so special about this briefcase anyway?
It's a data file containing Abstergo's plans and how they're utilizing these gangs. You must find it and uncover the information contained within. This is of the utmost importance.
Oh, come on. No. There has to be another way of doing this.
It must be done, Neo. We have to stop Abstergo.
Serious? At least they gave me a way out. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. What's up, my peeps? How we doing today? I'm Neo, and today we are, unfortunately, looking at Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This is the 9th installment in the popular, Assassin's Creed series. It came out in 2015, and it's centered on 1800s London. You follow the twins Jacob and Evie Fry as they seek to reclaim London from the Templars' control. Bam, bam, bam. And I guess if the voice in my earpiece told me that I need to go through this game and learn how Abstergo is smuggling their mediocre video games, then I'm gonna have to play it and try to learn a little bit about gangs and how they operate. I don't know, it says Syndicate. That's kind of like a gang, right? Yeah, it even says on the back, recruit gang members. Yeah. Okay. I might be able to learn something from this. Who knows? Let's just get this thing over with. So grab a beverage of your choice. I am on duty, so I can't go any harder than this. Let's get this thing started with the story. So like I said before, the game takes place in London at the tail end of the 1800s, which is roughly the tail end of the Industrial Revolution. Man, what a time. When labor laws didn't exist, children were exploited for their labor value, and corporate overlords didn't answer to anyone. Man, really glad that's over. So the story has two sections to it, okay? Just like any Assassin's Creed game. You've got the London story with the Fry twins back in the 1800s, and then you also have a modern day segment. And just like every Assassin's Creed game after 3, they had no fucking clue what they were doing with the story in this game. Even my beloved Assassin's Creed Black Flag didn't know what the fuck to do with their story. But unlike Black Flag, this one's modern day story is pretty much told through cutscenes, and just cutscenes. And this is fine, because the modern segments of most Assassin's Creed games are very lackluster. You don't play an Assassin's Creed game to play as a modern day assassin. Play an Assassin's Creed game to play the historical setting. So the majority of the game does take place in London, and because the modern story is exclusively told through cutscenes, and there's only about 5 of them in the entire game, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about the twins in London. So, what are they doing? Well, the twins arrive in London to set it free from control of a man named Starrick. And honest to God, I can't even remember the man's first name. They just call him Starrick, so I don't even care. He's just Bob Starrick from now on. So Bob, well, you can tell he's an evil guy. Look at that mustache. That is an evil man's mustache. It's obvious that he's got to go down. Let's kill him! So the twins arrive in London, and it seems like Starrick has a bit of a connection to their father, who used to be the head of the Assassins London chapter, and may or may not be responsible for their father's death? I don't know, they never actually explain it. Like, they never actually clearly explain it to anyone. But it's clear that London is being controlled by this guy. I mean, he's got his hands in everything, from the factories to the gangs to public transportation even. Yeah, there's even a level where you have to go in and do transportation sabotage. Like, destroy carriages and, like, carriage buses, like 2-story ones. It's really weird. It's up to you to control the twins, okay? And believe me, both of them are definitely separate, unique, and interesting characters. And by unique and interesting, I mean Jacob is reckless and bombastic, and Evie is stoic and uptight. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. Okay. I'm gonna preface this by saying a very simple rule about storytelling that is usually applicable in most scenarios, okay? You can have the greatest story concept in the world. You can have the most detailed world. You can have the most interesting plot line. But if the characters aren't interesting, and you can't tell a good character arc with them, then your story's gonna suck, okay? You can have the shittiest plot in existence, and as long as people care about the characters and find the characters interesting and fun, then you can tell whatever out of left field story you want. People won't care as long as they like the characters. So do we like Jacob and Evie? No! Okay, so I'll get to the main problem of the story, okay? So the story centers on the two twins working together to take down Starrick. The problem is that the two's methods are clashing because they're different. Honestly, if you couldn't see this coming a mile away, I'd go get your eyes checked, please. So over the course of the story, there's tension that's built up, and it reaches a breaking point by the end of the story, about as well as you would expect, okay? I'm not even joking, okay? So the tension is built up over the course of the entire game. Like, the entire game. Like, they start, like, having these little snippets of argument. But it's only snippets of argument, okay? Evie doesn't like how Jacob's focusing more on the gangs and sabotaging Starrick's industries. And she wants to focus more on fighting the piece of Iten. And oh boy, we'll get to that. But she wants to focus more on that. And Jacob's like, we don't need to worry about the piece of Iten, because if we can, destroy his criminal empire, then we're good. And they have these little snippets of argument throughout the game. And it all builds up to the final, little confrontation between them right before the final mission of the game. Or the final story segment of missions. It's like 3 missions strung together. Alright? They finally have this breakdown, and Jacob makes some mistake. Alright? One of the first ones he makes in the, game. Actually, that's not true. He makes a few mistakes. but he always resolves them. Moving on. The tension reaches a breaking point, and the mission where it's resolved is like the very last mission of the game, of the main story at least. Alright? Like the two have been like sort of snipping at each other and having this little like sibling conflict. But then at the end of this game, in one mission, they resolve all their differences and agree that maybe they should be more like the other. But yes, like I said, Evie's story revolves around her finding the Shroud of Iten. All I say is thank God it's not an apple. Okay? There's an apple in this game at the beginning of the story. And I was really mad because I thought we were just going to be chasing another apple. But nope, they actually surprised me and they changed the MacGuffin this time. So now we have a Shroud of Iten that heals people. And if you wear it, you're effectively immortal. So obviously we can't allow this thing to come into existence and be exposed to the public. Because there's no good that it could do in this world if you reveal it to the public. Do you see the problem I have with this game? Anyway, Jacob's story revolves around him trying to sabotage Sterek, hit him from the other side. And honestly, this just shouldn't be set up for conflict. This really shouldn't be set up for a conflict. Like, at the beginning, they're already bickering about what's the best route to go in terms of taking down Sterek. But honestly, this is the best plan of action they could have come up with. You have one of them focus on fighting the gangs and sabotaging Sterek's work, and the other one focus on finding the Shroud of Iten. It actually works out great. I don't understand why there's conflict here. At least at the beginning of the game. Because the conflict starts at the beginning of the game, and then builds up over the course of the game. But it makes no sense because this is the best way to do it. You distract him with one side, and then you, while he's distracted, you go in and take what he's looking for. It's smart. This is genius. Why are they fighting? Okay, so the best explanation I can come up with is that Jacob, in his efforts, they're very effective. He's taking down the gangs. He's sabotaging all of Sterek's industries. But he causes a lot of collateral damage, and he is a little self-destructive in his efforts, okay? He allows himself to get tricked and used and puts people in danger, and that's fine. You know what? If they had focused on more of that, of Evie confronting him after every mission and confronting him with all the damage he's caused, then this story would be a little more believable. And on the flip side, Evie is struggling to find this Shroud of Iten, and she even lets the little key thing that opens the vault at the end of the game get out of her grasp at one point, and she just completely fucks it up. And then Jacob, like, confronts her on it once. So it's like, if you're gonna have this clash, it makes no sense, because the plan is great, and then if you want to have this clash, you need to make it more relevant to the actions taken in-game. You need to focus on it more. You can't just give me 7 lines of dialogue of them fighting and then expect me to buy this story. I'm analyzing the story of an Assassin's Creed game, aren't I? What the fuck am I doing with my life? In any case, the conflict is kind of pointless, and it completely undermines the characters, and by extension, the player's efforts to achieve the goals set. You know, I was going somewhere with that, and I completely forgot where I was going with it. So the background characters and the historical figures in an Assassin's Creed game are usually really fun. I mean, like, you've got such great examples throughout the series. You've got Benjamin Franklin in Assassin's Creed 3. You've got Blackbeard in Assassin's Creed 4. Leonardo da Vinci in Assassin's Creed 2. And I don't know, 1800s London, this is more modern day. Like, this is closer to modern day than most other Assassin's Creed games. I think of all Assassin's Creed games, this is the closest to modern day. So there should be a lot of historical notes that they can take from, and maybe we'll get to see some cool, unique characters. And maybe they'll actually provide something to the story. And this could be fun. I'm actually excited for this. Who do we got? Sergeant Abberline. Okay, let's see where this is going. Okay, so Sergeant Abberline is the comic relief character? he keeps trying to disguise himself as, like, little old ladies, street cleaners, but he always keeps his mustache. And that's funny. Okay, maybe he's a side character though. He may not be a main historical figure. So let's see if any of the historical characters are any better. Let's see. Let's give it a chance. Okay, so we get to meet Alexander Graham Bell, whose only purpose is to make your gauntlet and send you on pointless side quests. Great start. Oh, hold on. We meet Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin's here, guys. Yeah, this is interesting. Okay, cool. We got a historical figure that a lot of people know of. This is cool. Maybe he's going to do some sciencey stuff. And he's investigating laboratories and committing espionage. Okay, I guess that it's kind of scientific based because it's like poison and chemical compounds and all that stuff. But shouldn't that be a Karl Marx thing? To go sabotage laboratories? I think he's in this game. I never met him, but I'm pretty sure he's in this game somewhere. Oh yeah, Charles Dickens, I think, makes an appearance in this game. They say he knows people, but he never shows up in the main quest, so I never went back to see him. I don't know. What does this game want me to do? And then the last major historical figure I can think of is Florence Nightingale, who shows up and is honestly the only one that makes sense. And actually, that was a pretty cool mission. I'll give the game that. That was a pretty cool mission. You steal some medicine, and then you bring it to the hospital, and then you meet Florence Nightingale, and she saves your little child spy thing. Ugh. But it's not that bad. That was actually really cool. I enjoyed that. Okay, so what do I think of the story in total? It's a jumbled mess. Okay? This, even Assassin's Creed 3. I didn't like Connor that much as a character, but the story was far more interesting, okay, and Haytham was a good villain. This story gives you nothing, okay? You have no motive behind Starrick other than he's evil. The main conflict of the story is bare bones and just tacked on because they could. And then the side characters, the historical side characters, they do nothing to service the story. Except give you a couple key items, and that's it. This game isn't even like Black Flag. You got invested into Edward Kenway in Black Flag, alright? Like, you were made to understand the doubt that was thrown at him all his life, that he'd go be a successful privateer, that he'd go be the successful person sailing the high seas. Like, you were shown that, alright? You see him make friends along the way in his dream of establishing a pirate empire, alright? And you see him lose those friends along the game. And this game does none of that. Syndicate does none of that. And it does it for a basic, bare-bones story that just services the setting. It makes me mad. You know what also makes me mad? What is with these fucking napkins? Okay, but that's not why I'm here. Story is not why I'm here. I'm here to learn about gangs. Okay, maybe I'll find out more information on that in the gameplay section. So, let's move on to gameplay. Let's hope the gameplay can save this thing. So in a nutshell, this game is just like any traditional Assassin's Creed. All right, any game before Assassin's Creed Origins, although maybe Unity was a little bit different. I'm not sure, but at least as far as the controls go, it's the same as everything up through Black Flag. All right, you've got free running. All right, you hold the R2 to free run. You crouch with X. You attack with square. You dodge with circle, and you stun with triangle. And yes, I'm playing this on PlayStation 4, so deal with it. Okay, I'm going to use PlayStation 4 controls. Okay, Assassination is always a one hit. The items use the D-pad to select out of the menu, and they're split into different categories like ranged weapons and smoke bombs, etc., etc., etc. They've added this new free run up and free run down function. And I'll be honest, it just annoys the shit out of me. It really just annoys the shit out of me. It's like I'm trying to run, and then like the thing that I'm trying to run to is slightly down, and sometimes you'll run down just by doing a regular free run, but sometimes you have to like free run and press circle so you can run down. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I hate it. I hate it. But that's not to say that all the changes are bad. There are slight improvements, okay? In general, the free running is slightly smoother, and it always gets slightly smoother with each game, although I still think 3 was the peak of the free running. I don't know, it just worked so well in the forests, and then the cities were built for it, and it was fantastic, okay? But back to Syndicate, Eagle Vision is now making the world grayscale. Okay. The enemy indicator of their awareness and whether they're suspicious or they've seen you, it's actually bigger, and it's a little bit easier to spot. It's a little bit easier to see. Okay, not bad, not bad. Cool. Okay, since guns do exist in this game, they add a mechanic to dodge. If you hit triangle, there'll be a prompt. It works, I guess. Okay, the problem with guns is that if you're ziplining, and we'll talk about ziplining later, but if you're ziplining across a canyon, or not a canyon, but like across a street, or if you're trying to zipline up to the top of a building or something, then if they're shooting you, they're most likely going to hit because they're all fucking army trained snipers with flintlock pistols, and they're going to hit you, and then you're going to drop, and you're going to hit the ground, and you're going to desync, and it's really fucking aggravating. Moving on, there are some occasional glitches. I didn't run into anything game breaking, but there's this gem.
Ooh. Game. That's not how arms are supposed to work. Oh my god, they're like twist ties! What is this?
Both characters are actually supposed to play pretty differently. Emphasis on supposed to. Okay, so Jacob's a brawler, Evie's stealth. Okay, makes a little sense. It's very surface level, but okay, it makes sense, okay? And then even the level system supports this. Theoretically. Honestly, the leveling system where you can unlock upgrades, which we'll get to, that one, it just... There's like 2 specific upgrades for Jacob and 2 specific upgrades for Evie. They're different. Yeah! But in reality, both characters are almost identical. They play almost the exact same thing. They just look different in combat, but they don't feel any different. Okay, so what do we got in terms of enemies to deal with in this game? Okay, so you get the same standard breakdown of enemies, okay? You have your average thugs, you got bruisers, you got some snipers, you got the heavy leaders. Yeah, it's typical Assassin's Creed at this point. Okay, there's also multiple factions that you can fight. You got gang members, you got Templars, and you have the police to deal with too. So you actually have a decent bit of variety, except that they all play exactly the same. Actually, no, that's a lie. The police can suck my dick. The problem with police in this game, okay, is that they can see you a mile away. Like, they can see you faster than any other, like, faction in the game. Even the sharpshooters. Like, even the sharpshooters on the other teams. Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever why the police can spot you from so far away, especially if you're in a crowd. Like, I mean, okay, I guess it's their job, and they're supposed to be trained to do that sort of thing, but, like, they are so unnaturally good at it. It makes me so mad the entire time. I was so mad. I'll give the example. Thugs and Templars, they can normally be stealthed around, okay? But police, there's always, like, 15 police officers. There's usually double the amount of police officers in a given area than there is gang members and Templars, okay? And because Templars and Thugs are very easy to stealth around, you can usually get around them, throw a few bombs, shoot them with a poison dart, etc. But police, because they can see you so fast, and because there's so many of them, and because half the missions where you're dealing with police, you're not supposed to kill them, it makes them the most aggravating part of this game. Okay, so, combat in an Assassin's Creed game, okay. The animations are cool, and the unique weapons look cool, but just like everything else in this game, it grows stale. Like, it's just stale. Everything about this game is stale. It's just stale. That's the perfect word for it. Stale. The animations, they can look cool, but they don't feel any different. Alright? You get to choose between different weapons. You've got kukris, you've got brass knuckles, you've got a cane, but they're all kind of pointless because theoretically they're supposed to operate differently. Like, kukris are supposed to be a higher kill, canes are supposed to be a higher stun, brass knuckles are supposed to be a mix, or whatever it is. Honestly, I gave Evie a cane, I gave Jacob a kukri, and I just played through the game like that. Because trying to switch between them for different scenarios makes no sense. Just always choose the more lethal option, okay? If you're going to be getting into a fight, you're going to want to kill them. You're just going to, okay? Now, if you were able to switch between, like, in the D-pad menu, between brass knuckles and kukri and cane, then you might have a better option, because that's more like the regular, like, older Assassin's Creeds, where you could switch between fighting with your hidden blades, or you could switch between fighting with your swords, or fighting with whatever you had on hand, or hand-to-hand was the other option. Like, that would be great. I would love that. That would be so much fun if you could do that with the kukri and the cane and the brass knuckles, but no, you can't. It makes no sense. Why do these operate differently? Really the only difference between them is the animations that you get, and it's pointless. It's just pointless. There's also a combo system. It exists. So the combo system, it's designed to allow you to do more damage to enemies when you hit certain levels in your combo. So, like, usually there's an upgrade you get where you can hit 10 if you hit a 10 combo, or like a 10 hit combo, then your next hit on a different enemy is going to bring them down to a near death state, which makes them easier to kill. That's cool in theory, but why would you even bother keeping track of that? I'm already halfway through beating this guy down. Why would I turn around, refocus, open myself up to attack this guy over here? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I mean, maybe if he comes at me and I hit the dodge button and then I'll counterattack him, then I'll bring him down to, like, near death state. But that's about the only instance in which this actually works. This also feeds into the multi-kill system in the game, okay? Which the multi-kills, they're always cool in an Assassin's Creed game. You get to kill multiple enemies at the same time. It's super dope. It's super cool. But just like the combo system, it's just another thing to keep track of. It's just another thing to keep track of. So to get a multi-kill, you have to have multiple enemies in a near death state, which means they have, like, this much health left in their health bar. This much. And then you have to attack them. Like, attack one of them and have the other one be nearby. And it's so much effort to try to, like, I'm gonna wound this guy and then not attack him, even though he's gonna still try to attack me and I'm gonna try to have to, like, dodge. And your instinct is to dodge and counterattack, which means now that guy's dead. And then, well, whoops, you just fucked it up because there were only two guys and you had both of them in a near-death state. And this one's now... I just wish this was like the old games where you just needed 2 or more people to attack you. That was nice. You should have 2 people. You just bait them into, like, if I wanted to get a multi-kill in Black Flag, I'd just wait for 2 people to attack and then counter them both. And then that's it. Nothing needed. Just press a button. Moving on. Okay, so guns. Guns exist in this game, and they break it at early levels. Okay, so you've got guns. They can break the game at the early levels, but at the later levels, I had a 8-shot revolver or a 6-shot revolver or something like that, and it would take all my shots to kill someone at the higher levels. They're kind of pointless, okay? They're good because you can, like, interrupt enemy attacks during the middle of your fight. Like, you'll be dodging, and you'll be doing some cool moves, and then they'll, like, try to shoot you, or you'll dodge, and then you'll shoot them back, and it's really cool. Honestly, it's not a bad way to interrupt your enemy's combos or their flow, but the guns are kind of useless outside of that. And speaking of useless, let's talk about the smoke bombs. The smoke bombs are usually, like, insta-death. in Assassin's Creed. They are like the easiest way to win. All right, you're in a fight, you got a bunch of people around you, drop a smoke bomb, and no one's gonna see you, and then you just go and assassinate everyone. In this game, no, they took out the best part of the smoke bombs, the thing that makes them useful as a quick escape. Like, that's the only thing you can use them for. Like, I'm surrounded, poof, now I'm gone. Some people are still gonna see you through the smoke and still attack you, and if you try to attack anyone, you're still in like an attack state. Like, you're still in a fight state. So you don't get to just assassinate them. You don't just get to whip this thing out and then just stab them. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I don't understand what they were thinking. But the smoke bombs are useless. Thank God there's voltaic bombs, because those things actually do damage. Let's talk about the open world and how much it sucks. The world is large, and that's a problem. I know a lot of people like open world games, but this is an open world that's not done the best. Okay, so like any Assassin's Creed game, everything feels the same. Everything feels the same. Initially, it's unique. It's cool. There's different landmarks. You see giant smokestacks. You see train stations. You see the palaces. You see the flags everywhere. It's really cool. And the buildings are super tall, and the streets are super wide, and there's horse-drawn carriages going everywhere. Honestly, it's really cool. It feels like a big city. And that's the problem, because it's a big city. It's hard to navigate. Everything's so freaking far apart. It makes no sense. So yeah, initially, it's unique and cool. But then it becomes a chore to cross, like a complete chore to cross. Like, fast travel points are sparse. So they're so far across the map that going out of your way to get them is incredibly tedious. They're so far apart. And they're not even labeled well, because in the old games, you used to have a little eagle symbol that you would go find. And then it would be filled in and be like bright white when you could use it as a fast travel point. And they changed that. So now you get the little eagle symbol that's filled in as a like eagle point, eagle vision point. And then they changed the symbol to something completely different. It looked like two arrows next to each other, like a fast forward button. And that's where you're supposed to go get, or that's what you're supposed to select as your fast travel point. It's insane. And yeah, they're so far out of the way that it's tedious to go get them, so you end up not going and getting them. And then, on top of that, every, like, mission across the game is so spread out that you have to run there, or use the rooftops, and use the zipline system, or you just get in a horse and carriage, because that's ultimately the fastest way. Speaking of the grappling hook, it's a necessity in this game. I know the developers added it because there was a necessity to change the system of travel, because the streets were so wide and you wouldn't be able to jump across them because London streets were super wide, and it would be super unrealistic if you shortened them. It wouldn't look like 1800s London. But it just becomes such a chore. You got to get to a point, you got to get to the edge of the building, and then you got to like look for the point and then maximize your distance with the grappling hook. And then you jump across and you glide across on the grappling hook, and it's a done deal. But the grappling hook doesn't even come into play in anything else. Like, you can't use it as a weapon, okay? And it's not used in any of the kill animations I've seen, even though it could easily replace the rope dart as a weapon. I mean, how cool would that be? You're standing on like a little bar that's connecting two buildings, and then, or a support beam or something, and then you like grappling hook someone, and then you do the rope dart thing from the previous games. Like, it fits with the game. You've already made the system. Why can't you fucking do it? And that's not even mentioning the fact that there's a giant fucking river right in the middle of the map. The river Thames. Thames? Some British person, please correct me in the comments, because I don't know how to say that word. The giant river in the middle of the map. That thing. So you've got this giant river in the middle of the map. It's a chore to cross. Just a chore. Because you gotta jump from boat to boat. The boats are constantly moving, and there's little tiny boxes that you can jump across, and little pillars sticking out of the water that you can jump across. But it's so slow. It's so slow. I can't imagine someone looked at this and said, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. We can put that in our game, in our AAA release game. And there's bridges that you can cross But again, they're spaced out, so you would have to go out of your way to the bridge, get in a horse and carriage, drive across, and then continue driving to your quest or objective or whatever it is you're doing. And then they tried to add in a train, because it's the 1800s and steam trains were all the rage. You get this train as your moving hideout base, and it moves across the map. And that would be cool if it didn't move at the pace of a geriatric snail. It's not useful as a transportation item. It's not useful as a fast travel waypoint. It's not even useful as a base, because all it is an in-game menu. The train, kind of useless. Doesn't really serve a purpose other than to be somewhere you go after your missions are done. And even then, it's tedious to get off it, because you can only jump off of it onto certain parts of the landscape, like certain pieces of bridge, or you have to wait for it to come into a train station. So it doesn't even serve well as a transportation tool. Why can they not just make something work? The overworld in this game, just in general, you've got your map and you've got territory that's controlled by the opposing gang faction, and you can go into different territories and you can complete objectives to free it and release it from the control of the other gang. And the objectives are all the same shit. The same thing. And you've got kill this boss, free these children, sabotage this thing, steal this thing, start a gang war. I'll admit the gang war's kind of cool. It's cool in concept, like the first couple times, but then it just becomes like a mini boss fight. And it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't need this. And they're so easy that it makes you wonder why they even put them in the game to begin with. They're so easy. It's just another thing to do, and it becomes tedious and repetitive and stale. I will give this game one thing. And I know I've been really hard on it, but I will give it this. The assassination sequences in this game are rather fun. So what they do is they give you a piece of the map, like a building, a facility with multiple entry points and multiple levels, and then they put their the target that you're supposed to assassinate in the building somewhere or in the compound somewhere, and then they give you multiple optional side objectives to complete, which will make getting to the target easier. I'll mention one in the psychiatric hospital was really fun. You play as Jacob, and there's a way to go downstairs into the morgue and take the place of a dead body, and then some newbie doctor takes you on the gurney and then moves you upstairs to where the guy is in his classroom, like he's lecturing a bunch of people on how to like properly do some sort of brain surgery. It's kind of freaky, not gonna lie. You make your way up there on this gurney, he delivers you to there, and then when you're there, you can assassinate him from there because he's not expecting it. He doesn't see you coming, no one sees you coming. You just pop out, you stab him, and you go on your merry way. Those segments are the best part of the game, hands down. They're targets you have to assassinate, and the level design is creative, and the amount of enemies is usually pretty balanced, and the optional side objectives can make the entire game easier. So overall, those are fun. Best part of the game, hands down. If these segments were in more of the game, it would elevate the whole thing. It would be a much better experience overall. Too bad that's not the case. Okay, last thing I'm going to touch on real quick, because it really frustrated me, is the menu system in this game. I don't know what it is about them. They don't feel like a good menu system. Alright? So, to tell you about how many menus there is a menu for your skills and abilities as an assassin. It's divided into 3 tiers. Combat, economy, I think it's economy. I'll put it in here. But there's combat, there's stealth, and then there's like economy. So you've got one for your combat, which is Jacob's tree, and Jacob's 2 upgrades are in that tree. All right, and then you've got stealth, which is Evie's thing, and you get to upgrade all your stealth abilities. And then your final tree is just random stuff in the game, like carriage driving or gunslinging or being able to buy stuff from the shop, whatever. But that's one. There are more. There's an entire menu for your gang upgrades. And initially I was excited because I was like, ooh, hey, gang upgrades. This would be fun. So that also has 3 trees. And you get to choose between gang like strength, the numbers, the types of gang members you have, how many of them populate the world. You have a sabotage column where you get to sabotage the enemy gang, and then you get to weaken their carriages, poison their water, like stuff like that. Just makes them weaker, lowers the average level of enemies that you're going to fight, and that's pretty cool. And then you have an actual economy tab, which lowers the prices in shops, increases the amount of materials you can gather to then purchase later upgrades. And that's hunky-dory as well. You don't need any of this. You barely need the gang at all, because everything you can use the gang for in this game, you can just do by yourself. Like, seriously, you only use them to conquer more territory. You can gather up a few, and then take them into the section with you, and have them beat up a bunch of people, and that's it. That's pretty much it. You can have them jump in a carriage with you. I guess that's cool. You really can't take them into story missions. I mean, you can in some of the earlier ones, but especially the assassination ones, you can't really take your gangs with you to go distract the guards as much. And I'm sure you can, it's just that every time you go into one of these assassination things, there's like no one around. And that partially might be just because a lot of them take place in areas that you may not have conquered yet. But conquering them is so tedious that it's not worth it. You can just do everything by yourself. There's no real incentive to use your game. And that's the problem that is in this entire game. It seeps into this entire game. There's no incentive to do any of the extra stuff. In Black Flag, you had a ship, and you had incentive to go get materials and money to upgrade your ship so that you could go take on bigger ships. Syndicate doesn't have that. It doesn't have that with the gangs. It just doesn't. But back to the menus, there's another menu. There's a crafting menu, like every Assassin's Creed game, where you can craft bombs. You can get more bullets. You can get health potion, medicine things. That's about it. You can craft them. And then there's a crafting menu for gear and weapons, where you can craft new weapons and you can craft upgrades to your gear. But again, there's no real good reason to use any of them. Like, you don't see the aesthetic difference in game that much of the Ruby Kukri versus the standard Kukri. And while the Ruby Kukri might have a little more damage, it's only going to cut your TTK by 2 or 3 hits. So it's really not worth it to try to gather the materials and spend it on making the Kukri. It makes me mad, because Kukris are dope. I love Kukris. Hit like for Kukris. Again, with the menus, all those menus I just stated, all 4 of them, you have one for each character. Each character. So you have to level up Jacob separate, level up Evie separate, give them different weapons, give them different outfits, give them different gear, and upgrade all the stuff that they're carrying separately. So you have to manage all of that. In conclusion, is the game bad? Not necessarily. in this game. At the end of the day, it's an Assassin's Creed game that follows the old formula. So if you like the gameplay loop of the old formulas of going around and killing random people and completing side objectives, there's fun to be had here. But the unique elements and the added features, they just feel tacked on to justify the setting of an 1800s London. That's it. This game felt like nothing was put in because they thought it was a good idea. It felt like they put it in because they needed to justify the 1800s setting. Oh, well, 1800s London had wide streets, so we needed to put a grappling hook in there. And the story does kind of suck. But you kind of expect that out of this game. The story is not groundbreaking. It's not going to win any Game of the Year awards. This was when they were making an Assassin's Creed like every year. They were pumping out a new one every year. So this is not some award-winning story. This isn't going to be God of War. This isn't Red Dead Redemption. This is none of those. So it's passable. It's serviceable to justify you running around 1800s London and killing people. But the characters aren't interesting, and the story isn't entertaining, so that's a no for me, dog. But the worst part of this entire game, the worst part of this thing right here, is that I still have no fucking clue how to run a gang. I thought this was Abstergo's template for their gang activity. How am I supposed to figure out their smuggling patterns for shitty, mediocre video games now? There's nothing here. You barely use the gangs at all. And half the upgrades for them are just shop discounts and fire trucks in the streets. This isn't educational. This isn't going to teach me how to take down a criminal organization. What if they added like a mini game? Like in Black Flag, you had the fleet management, all right? Then you could capture certain ships, and then you would send them off to go trade, and it would increase your wealth, and it actually incentivized you to do that because you would get more money and more wealth. What if they did that with the gangs? What if they had a mode like that where you could be like, hey, we've got all this I don't know, opium, alcohol, whatever. You have all this, and then you need to smuggle it through territory. So you need to recruit gang members, and you need to assemble a team of gangs and like make them super strong and super powerful. And then you send them to go smuggle, or you send them to go do gang fights, or you send them to go reinforce a warehouse or something, and then you get rewarded for that. That would be so cool. That would be so cool. Go send them to commit gang sabotage, run your smuggling routes, get more money and resources. But there's nothing. What do they expect me to do? Read a book? Fuck you. Stupid waste of my time. I feel better now. Thank you everyone so much for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please let me know in the comments below and subscribe for more. And let me know your thoughts about Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Please. Did you like this game? Did you hate this game? Did you think it was just meh? Let me know all your thoughts and more down below. And I will see you in the next one. Stay beautiful. Peace.